In multiple videos, we spent quite a bit of time unpacking Donald Trump's recent and virally disastrous interview with MAGA Fox News host Laura Ingraham. Well, apparently it went so poorly that the White House scrambled and desperately sent Vice President J.D. Vance back to Fox News to try to clean up Trump's mess during a sit down interview with MAGA Fox News host Sean Hannity. And I would argue, in some ways, he made it worse. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, I want to show you some clips of J.D. Vance's sit down with Sean Hannity, in which much of the time Vance is trying to clean up Trump's screw-ups regarding affordability in the economy, on which Trump and Vance are hemorrhaging. Trump is wildly unpopular on the economy, and it used to be his best issue. So Vance is trying to clean up the mess.
Maybe are still suffering from the Biden-Harris economic hangover. Sure. When do we really see the engine of the economy start to take off?
Well, some of it's already started, Sean, but some of it is going to take a long time because we inherited a disaster. We inherited the highest peacetime debt and deficits in the history of the United States of America. We inherited the worst inflation crisis in at least the last 40 years, and I think probably longer. So a lot of Americans, when we took over, they were struggling. They either were underemployed or they didn't have a job altogether. Their wages had been stagnant. And the President of the United States said the most important thing that we have to fix is for people to be able to live a good life.
Okay, so again, you see how Hannity, unlike Ingraham, again, this illustrates the contrast between Hannity and Ingraham, okay, on the Fox News spectrum. You have people like Jesse Waters, right, and who are just devout MAGA loyalists and who will never push and never test. Then you have people like Laura Ingraham and Maria Bartiromo, who are MAGA, more MAGA than I believe like Brett Baer is, for example. But they're MAGA in the sense that they want Trump to succeed, and so they're willing to try to nudge and guide and direct and push back if it means making him a better MAGA president. So they're not doing it to tell the truth. They're not doing it to check him. They're not doing it to challenge him or undermining him. They're like, listen, you're kind of screwing this up, and I really want you to succeed, so I'm just going to kind of lead you here. Sean Hannity's actually somewhere in the middle. He's more MAGA than I would argue Ingraham and certainly Maria Bartiromo are. But he's also recognizing that Trump is seriously vulnerable. So he won't push back the way that Ingraham and Bartiromo do, but he'll ask leading questions. So think of the question. He's like, when are we going to see, there are people who are still complaining about affordability, and obviously you guys inherited the Biden mess. But when are the engines going to turn? So he's teeing them up to blame it on Biden. That's precisely what J.D. Vance did, belied by the fact that when J.D. Vance talks about the peacetime debt and deficit, Donald Trump deficit spent during the first 3 years of his first administration when the economy was humming thanks to the economy he inherited from President Obama. There was no COVID. He inherited a great economy, and there was no reason to deficit spend. He deficit spent like a maniac, fiscally irresponsible by Republican standards. And then by the time he left office, Donald Trump added $8 trillion to the national debt, more than any single president in a 4-year term, including President Biden, the following 4 years. So, JD, that's not really persuasive. But again, he keeps emphasizing it's Biden's fault.
There are a lot of people out there, Sean, who are saying things are expensive. And we have to remember they're expensive because we inherited this terrible inflation crisis from the Biden administration. But you've already seen signs that things are getting better. The price of eggs.
I want to stop right there. J.D. Vance just contradicted Donald Trump in real time on Fox News. Remember, we talked about this. We played the clips. Trump repeatedly insisted that affordability was no longer an issue. Prices are great and they're down under Trump compared to Biden. Affordability is great. Republicans just got to talk about it more. J.D. Vance is saying, that's bullshit. Actually, things really are still expensive. They are still unaffordable. But it's Joe Biden's fault. So now there's a bigger mess. Not only is J.D. Vance trying to blame Biden for an issue that Trump said he would snap his fingers and end on day one. Remember, we played those clips multiple times in previous videos. All those times on the campaign trail that Trump said, like me, on day one, we're going to bring the prices down. He said it multiple times to solicit your vote. So the Joe Biden did it thing, that doesn't work. That stopped working on January 21st, 12:01 p.m., 24 hours after Trump became president, because you had a day to fix it. And now we're 10 months in to this new administration. This is objectively your fault. This is objectively your economy. You can't blame Joe Biden for this, so you contradict Trump there. And then you contradict him again when you say, actually, no, people are right. Things are affordable. So did J.D. Vance clean up Trump's mess? Maybe, because certainly the American people aren't buying what Trump's selling. But he may have just made a mess for himself in the process by humiliating and contradicting Trump on Fox.
Has gone way down. The price of energy has gone way down. The price of gasoline has gone way down. And as we know, when the price of energy goes down, that starts to filter out into the entire economy. But that also takes a little bit of time.
You guys said it would take one day. You said you would just cut prices on day one. So not very good. But again, he doubles down. Listen, people, you're right. And things are unaffordable. But please don't blame us. Even though we said we could snap our fingers and get it done, please blame Joe Biden.
We inherited a disaster. We've chipped away at a lot of that problem in 10 months. But that's why you've got 4-year terms, because we're going to do a lot over the next 3 years, 3 months to make sure that more people can afford a good life. They can afford to buy homes. Young people can afford to start families.
Yeah, doesn't seem like the American people are buying it. 70% say that prices have gotten worse under Trump and you than they were under Biden. So you're objectively worse if the polling and the American sentiment is the measure, which you all told us that was the measure during Biden. So we're going to flip it around on you. That's not good, number one. Number two, your polling on the economy and inflation is as bad as Biden's ever was. So again, just doesn't seem right. Here's another clip in which J.D. Vance talks about his favorite AI tools.
Back to the home building part. It's interesting you brought it up. Are you as obsessed with AI as I am?
I am.
Okay, I don't know. I'm a grok guy.
Okay. Me too. I'm a grok guy.
You're a grok guy. Okay, Elon. I think it's the best.
I think it's the best. It's also the least woke.
It's the least woke. Well, I'm curious. I mean, let's go to Grok. Let's go to Grok. Okay. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? Yes, Donald Trump lost the 2020 presidential election to Joe Biden. Ooh, that's not good. That's not good. Trump has repeatedly claimed the election was stolen or rigged, and a narrative echoed by some allies like J.D. Vance, who said in 2024 that Trump did not lose in those terms. However, Trump acknowledged the loss in the September 2024 podcast. These claims remain unsubstantiated and have been widely debunked by fact checkers. Not good. Let's see. Did Donald Trump try to steal the 2020 election from Joe Biden with fake electors and the January 6th insurrection? Let's just say, isn't it fair? We'll be even nicer to say Donald Trump tried. Yes, based on extensive investigations, court records, and official findings, it is fair to describe Donald Trump's post-elections actions as a deliberate attempt to subvert the 2020 presidential election results to and unlawfully retain power, including through a fake elector scheme and the events culminating in the January 6th Capitol attack. Ooh, that's not good. Okay. Let's see. I'm just curious. Are Donald Trump and J.D. Vance hypocrites? I'm curious. I'm just curious. Hypocrisy involves publicly advocating for principles while acting in direct contradiction to them. In politics, it's common, but particularly stark with figures like Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, whose careers are marked by rapid shifts in rhetoric, policy positions, and personal conduct. You know what? I think I like Grok too, J.D. Well said. I think I like Grok. I mean, I'm just curious. What else? Did Donald Trump claim he could end inflation and cut costs on his first day back in office? If so, why have inflation and cost cuts not manifested? I should say inflation reduction. Yes, Donald Trump repeatedly claimed during his 2024 campaign that he'd end inflation and bring costs down starting on day one of his presidency. Why haven't inflation cost cuts manifested? Inflation has not ended and prices have not broadly declined. Instead, year-over-year inflation has ticked up to about 3%. Ooh, damn, you know what? I'm with JD. I like Grok a lot. So there we go. Then, of course, JD really lays it on thick with claims about Trump's health.
Go with the flow pretty well. Do you have quiet moments? You think about that?
Yeah, honestly, Sean, I try not to. I mean, one, I serve under Donald Trump, who is very healthy.
He casts a pretty big shadow.
He casts a big shadow, but if I served under Joe Biden, I'd probably be worried every minute of every day that he was going to croak and that I'd have to become president.
Let's laugh at the former president who has stage 4 cancer about him croaking. Trump, of course, is about 3 years younger than Biden, still very old. I think it's hilarious that he talks like Trump is extremely healthy when we know Trump isn't. Chronic bruises on his hands, swollen ankles, the inability to walk in a straight line, having to repeatedly be led around by foreign dignitaries, walking, veering, on and off during a red carpet walk to Vladimir Putin, the post-stroke, slacking of the jaw. There was that. There was when he went missing for a week and refused to be seen in public, engage in public. There's the MRI scan, which is not routine. There's the 2 annual visits to Walter Reed Medical Center. Annual means yearly, which means that they took him a second time, which is not annual, meaning that there was some reason for them to do so. He had to take a cognitive test in addition to the MRI scan. Yeah, no one's buying it, JD. No one's buying it. And just look, the fact of the matter is, I don't think JD made this any better. I think he further emphasized why the American people found him to be the least liked of the major candidates in last year's election. Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, JD Vance. Kamala was the most liked, Walz was the most liked, then Kamala, then Trump, then Vance. And Vance was the runt of the pack, the caboose of the train by a country mile. And he's certainly a better speaker than Donald Trump, but he lacks Trump's charisma, his weird charisma. He lacks his connection to MAGA, and he's just incredibly dishonest and oozes hypocrisy. So there you have it, folks. That was a desperate bid to clean up Trump's mess, and I think that he made it worse. He contradicted Trump in real time, humiliating Trump, and I just don't think it's going to work, JD. But nice try. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.